Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session on the Andrew Tucker, not the Andrew Tucker, but the Rumination News Network. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. And today we are going to be looking at a rather interesting topic. Venezuela turns to Russia and China. U.S. pressure backfires. As the United States ramps up political and economic pressure, Venezuela is turning to Moscow and Beijing for support, a move that could reshape global power dynamics in the Americas. In this report, we explore how Washington's strategy might be backfiring, strengthening the alliances between Venezuela, Russia, and China, and creating new tensions across the Caribbean and Latin America. What does this mean for the region, especially for countries like Trinidad, Guyana, and Jamaica that are caught between Western influence and Eastern partnerships? Watch as we break down with context you won't hear on mainstream Caribbean outlets. So I hope that you are prepared for this news. So we're seeing now that war efforts are ramping up. And the United States, even though the United States, through Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is suggesting that he doesn't think he's going to go at war with Venezuela. We must understand that America tends to operate covertly. And we know that the New York Times presented a story some weeks ago in which it suggested that Trump has given permission, the green light to the CIA to launch covert actions in Venezuela, with the end goal to remove the president, Nicolas Maduro, from power. That is a fact that was stated in the New York Times, among other mainstream media outlets. So it's nothing that you are going to tell me that's conspiracy theory. It's not a credible source, because according to you, if it's not coming from these outlets, it means therefore that it is not credible news. Now, we should understand that we're living in a geopolitical world, a geopolitical chess game. I think it was the former American national advisor, Zbigniew Zabriskie, who spoke about, I think he wrote a book on the chess game, right? America's chess game. I can't remember the title of the book. And those of you who can, you can remind me in the comment section, right? It's not coming to mind now, but that's a critical book to read in terms of his talking about America's full spectrum dominance in this global geopolitical chess game where world powers are vying for supremacy. Now, we see where the United States is the undeniable, the irrefutable, the unquestionable military power in the world. And we can also say, even though she's going through economic challenges, but remember now that when we talk about America, we're talking about states within states. So the military state in the United States is having the best time of its life. It's a trillionaire industry, while the people, the democratic state that is running concurrently with the military state for now, because what in the United States, there's also war being waged on U.S. soil against U.S. people, in which the democratic institutions and the democratic state will be dismantled, and the priority will be given to the military state. As Chalmers Johnson said in his book, The Sorrows of Empire, Militarism, Secrecy, and End of the Republic, Chalmers Johnson, the great American political scientist, he suggested that eventually America is going to become a domestic militarized empire in which the military is what is going to be operating in the seats of government, in the seats of governance. So it means, therefore, that America's rights will be totally dismantled. And we see that day fast approaching. And he wrote this book years before Trump even ever came into power. So we must understand that that infrastructure, as he outlined in his book, has been developing for many years. And now we are at the culmination of what that domestic militarized empire is going to look like. And we're seeing some dark clouds hanging over America's head. And many people are not discerning that what we're seeing are or is a battle for global supremacy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just be very frank with you as I'm dialoguing with you right now. A lot of times when you look at the global dynamics, you must understand, especially if you study secret societies, that many of these people are brotherhoods. They're part of the brotherhood or the sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, right? So they might not be enemies as you think they are. China versus the United States, Russia versus China, and all of these things. And we like to look at this because we are geared and we are conditioned into a certain world where we think that is good versus evil. But remember now that we are living in an evil world. The only thought of that is good is God, comes from God. So, and evidently these powers are not directed by God. They're controlled by the enemy of our souls, right? The devil, right? That is that is the being that controls all of the countries of the world, all the world powers, all the global powers, including the United States. Okay, so when we think about the fact that one world power might be good and the other, the Bible says that there's no good in the enemy, absolutely none. But he can present as if something is good, even though inherently it's evil. And that is how the devil presents himself as a master deceiver. Very important that you understand that. So when we look at Russia and we look at China, and some of you are so excited about the fact that Russia and China might be coming to the aid of Venezuela, and you think Venezuela is a state of sainthood, that is not true. What I'm presenting to you, and I have been presenting to you on these videos, is to let you know that we're living in an evil world where the devil controls. He is the ruler. He's the prince of the air. And all these kingdoms, which the Bible describes as beasts, he controls them. Right? He controls them. So it is Venezuela, or it's Trinidad, or it's Jamaica, or it is the United States. He controls all of them. Okay? Now, what we can do as decent citizens and law-abiding citizens is to stand on the side of the law and righteousness. The Bible says that righteousness exalts a nation and sin is a reproach to any nation. When we reject God, not that God has a theocracy on earth. He used to with Israel. He had to forsake them because they were rebellious and they were defiant and they didn't want to listen to him. They only want the benefits of being aligned with him, as America wants or desires to. America wants to behave badly and do some of the most gruesome and evil things in the world, but then they say that they're a Christian nation. And Israel, as a theocrat, as a theocratic government, when God used to be ruler over Israel as a nation, they behaved the same way. They wanted to behave like other nations, yet still they wanted the benefits that came about with aligning themselves with the God of nature, with the God of not of nature, but the God of heaven. I'm sorry. Okay, with the God of heaven. Let me be distinct here for those climate fanatics, lest they misunderstand what I've said. So I've corrected myself. Okay, so what we're seeing here, what we are witnessing here, ladies and gentlemen, is I would say, a sort of deceptive play that if we're not careful, we're going to be deceived. So don't be on the side of any nation. What you need to do is to side with what is lawful. So when I speak about Kamla Persad-Bissessar or Andrew Holness or Mia Motley of Barbados, I'm looking at the law. I'm looking at what is decent. I don't have anything against them. Because in the first place, if you're Christian, which I am, the Bible says that he's the one who sets up and he puts down. Yeah. God sets up and he puts down. And if you read Romans 13, he says that he allows governments, sometimes who are evil, as a means of judgment on the citizens of that country. So sometimes when we're not behaving ourselves, or all the times when we're not behaving ourselves as a nation, Because even though the devil is the prince of the air, but God is the ruler of the universe. The only reason why he permits the devil to do what he does here is because we are so evil and we give the government, not the government, the devil, a leeway, a passage to us when we do evil things. Okay? But God would not have tolerated nonsense and would not have allowed him to do a lot of the things that he's doing. And don't get me wrong, sometimes also God allows the devil to do bad things to righteous people, as we saw in Job. Okay? And many other circumstances in the Bible. So people who are good people do go through difficult times because the enemy wants them to curse God, as he wanted Job to have cursed God and die. All right. So let me make that very clear that I am not on Russia's side or China's side or the United States side. I am on that which is principled. I am on the Lord's side, that which is righteous, that which is perfect, that which is noble. Okay. And none of these countries, I must say, if you read the history and if you're just reading what is happening currently, can you say is morally upright. But if they're doing something that is right, you ought to give them credit for doing so. And that is exactly what I'm doing. So Venezuela, the United States is threatening Venezuela and said that they want to war with Venezuela because the president is aligned with cartels, drug cartels, Cartel de los Soles. That is the primary cartel to which Trump has linked Nicolas Maduro. We have suggested already on many occasions that the Marco Rubio, and please go and watch that video I actually did yesterday. Please like the video and subscribe. You need to watch the videos. Very important that you do that because very soon you will not be going to hear from me if you don't watch the videos. You have to watch the videos. It's critical that you watch the videos and you like the videos. You tend to like and all these prank videos, and these prank videos are going to send you to your grave because these are just mere entertainment and you're not following what is happening in the world. And if you're not informed, that is why we are going to be totally eradicated from this world. And there are evil agendas. There are dark forces out there who are desirous of wiping us completely off the face of this world, of this earth. I hope you understand that. So a lot of times when we're seeing these wars, okay, some of these actors who we think are enemies of each other are working for depopulation of the planet. Okay, so we don't even know if Kamala is working with Maduro, if Trump is working with Maduro. It appears that they're not. Okay, and the Bible did say that in the kingdom of the devil, there is division. Only when we're united under Christ and the truth do we have unity. Okay, they might appear to be divided, but the end goal is the same. And it's to create wars. And then wars wipe us off the planet and creates a lot of problems, sickness, and we know what happened 5 years ago. And when wars take place, diseases outbreak, we have an outbreak of diseases. And then you have the billionaires being able now to step in disaster capitalism, which I'm going to have on this Sunday coming. I hope Mr. Pereira will join us again to talk about disaster capitalism, Hurricane Melissa, and the war in Venezuela. We have to discuss these things to understand that what you think are disasters, and, Kamala and the Maduros and the Trumps could be finding that, and the Bill Gates and some of these oligarchs, or all of them, are going to find the right time to earn their billions, if not trillions of dollars. Okay, so what we think looks very nefarious and is sickening, heart-wrenching, okay, stomach churning to them, it's not. To them, it's the precise time, the precise moment, the opportune moment to make money. And some of them laugh. So when we look at what is happening, the Washington Post is reporting as U.S. ramps up pressure, Venezuela pleads with Moscow and Beijing for help. Amid a buildup of American forces in the Caribbean, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is reaching out to Russia, China, and Iran to enhance its worn military capabilities and solicit assistance, requesting defensive radars, aircraft repairs, and potentially missiles, according to internal U.S. government documents obtained by the Washington Post. The requests to Moscow were made in the form of a letter meant for Russian President Vladimir Putin and was intended to be delivered during a visit to the Russian capital by a senior aide this month. Maduro, according to the documents, also composed a letter to Chinese President Xi Jinping seeking expanded military cooperation between their two countries to counter the escalation between the US and Venezuela. So we see where that the so-called enemies, Russia and China versus the United States. Yet still, what is happening, what seems to be ironic, is that the United States has a lot of its, well, its business, its oligarchs who control the United States, have a lot of economic investments in China and perhaps in Russia. Yet still, they seem to be at war. What on God's earth is happening to our world? Are they playing here a chess game with us? Are we in a geopolitical chess game, as Zabanuza Zabrensky suggested? These are some of the things that we have to explore. Are these just a mere smoke screen to deceive us? And we're going to take one side. Okay, I'm on the side of the US because I'm a US citizen, or I'm on the side of Russia because I like what Russia does. I like President Vladimir Putin. Okay? Should we be thinking like that? Or should we be delving a little bit deeper into the geopolitical maneuverings? I think that is what we have to do. And we have to look at the secret societies to which these guys are affiliated and they're connected. Okay? The Jesuit order and what they do and the things that they do around the world. We've got to look at these things, ladies and gentlemen, and move away from, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. The Bible says that the devil works as a conspirator. It doesn't say that exactly, but the devil works in secrecy. Darkness, that's what he works in, and that is what his conspiracy is. Now, is everything attributable to the devil? Maybe not. All right? Some of his demons are working with him, but he's their representative. Okay? So if the devil controls these nations, which he does, then we must understand that there's nothing that they're doing that is godly, that is righteous. But it can be legal or illegal according to human laws. Right? And we are here because we're living in this world. Okay, not that we are worshippers of any of these kingdoms, these beast-like or beastly kingdoms, but we have to stand up for which is ethically and morally and legally right. Okay, so I know, for example, that I don't think Nicolas Maduro should just be kicked out because the United States suggests that he should. Even if Jamaica had suggested that he should, or Trinidad, no. The people should decide. The Venezuelan people, los venezolanos, they are the ones who should dictate whether or not President Maduro should leave office. As Americans, should dictate whether or not President Trump, even though right now they're saying that his approval rating is at 32%. And it keeps declining. But should President Maduro or Prime Minister Andrew Holness or another prime minister or president from another country, should they declare that President Trump should go? No. Or that he is an illegitimate president? No, they can't and should not. They don't have that legal right to do so. Okay? And that is what we're suggesting when we talk about the removal of Presidente Nicolas Maduro. The documents say Transport Minister Ramon Celestino Velasquez also recently coordinated a shipment of military equipment and drones from Iran while planning a visit to that country. He told an Iranian official that Venezuela was in need of passive detection equipment, GPS scrambles, and almost certainly drones with 1,000 kilometers, 600-mile range, the documents state. In the missive, Maduro emphasized the seriousness of perceived U.S. aggression in the Caribbean, framing U.S. military action against Venezuela as action against China due to their shared ideology, the U.S. documents said. So Maduro is actually accepting that China and Venezuela share the same political ideology, which, of course, is socialism, communism. Now, you can decide if there is a difference between socialism and communism. That's not the purpose of the video today. But look at what they're saying now about Russia. Russia remains the primary lifeline for Maduro. On Sunday, an Ilyushin, that I can't pronounce this word, I don't know, they have these, could be Russian, 76, one of the Russian aircraft sanctioned in 2023 by the United States for participating in the arms trade and transporting mercenaries, arrived in Caracas, Venezuela's capital, after a circuitous route over Africa to avoid Western airspace, according to Flight Radar 24. That's Flight Radar 24. The Kremlin declined to comment on the letter, but the foreign ministry on Friday evening said that Moscow supports Venezuela in defending its national sovereignty and stands ready to respond appropriately to the requests of our partners in light of emerging threats. Okay, so this is what it's all about. They're having a chess game, and war is going to emerge, is going to erupt, and people are going to die. Famine is going to occur. And the Bible says that in the final days, we'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. The nations will be angry, and there will be famines and distresses all around the globe. Now, it seems like we in the Caribbean have been watching, we have been spectators of what is happening, was happening in the other parts of the world, in Africa, in the Middle East, right, in Asia. But we were spared for a long, long time. And war has come home, not only to the Caribbean and Latin American region, but to the United States of America as well. And we're caught up now in this conflict. We've been having peace, but we think that peace is achieved through osmosis, and that it happens because we are from the Caribbean and we are paradise. But overnight, just like how Hurricane Melissa destroyed Jamaica, our peace likewise, and we can be destroyed and we can be plunged into a zone of war overnight. Very important that we understand these very important issues that I'm presenting to you. And make sure that you're liking the videos, you're subscribing to the channel, because we want to have more deep, incisive, critical analyses. Very important that you do that. But you're not doing that, are you? Okay? You need to watch the videos and watch them throughout. Okay? Very important that you do that. We're playing games here, and a lot of the nonsense that you're listening to, you're going to find that a lot of what you're hearing are not true. And that is what is happening. That, as the Bible says, that people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge, one, okay? And darkness covers the world because men prefer darkness than light. And darkness there means error, and light means truth, the unvarnished truth. And people don't like to hear the unvarnished truth because it preoccupies them, and it takes them out of their comfortable, situation, out of their paradise. Because after all, we just want to have a good time, like the Sodom people living in Sodom and Gomorrah and the antediluvian world. They just wanted to live in a nice world, a world in which they were just enjoying themselves, until the flood came, and also the city of Sodom and Gomorrah were completely destroyed. This is where we are right now. People are enjoying themselves while the destructive forces are planning to wreak havoc on our lives. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? And we don't know what is happening behind the scenes. We can just look at what we're seeing on the surface. But we don't know what conversations Kamala is having with Maduro behind the scenes. It was Shakespeare who said that this world is a grand, what do you call it now? Theater. That's what it is. A grand stage. That's the word, a stage where they're just acting. And our governments of the world are actors and actresses. And they're acting this geopolitical game, this geopolitical chess game. And the sad thing that this is not just a fictional movie. This is the real movie with real actors, with real lives that we're talking about. And as we now are witnessing a war in the Caribbean region, and Trump is also threatening Colombia, that will be waged. Trinidad stands to suffer. Guyana stands to suffer. And all those other countries in the surrounding areas, and the entire Caribbean and Latin American region, because remember now that Trump desires full spectrum dominance. Very important that you understand that. So we don't know when this war is going to erupt. But what we can say, what we can do, we can say that no to war, because we want to live in a zone of peace. But beyond that, we've got to inform ourselves that a lot of what we're seeing could be a grand theater, and we're being deceived, and ultimately we are going to be destroyed. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the video so the videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. And for those of you who'd like to make a monetary donation to the channel, you can send it to my Cash App at the $MZTUCK9. That's the $MZTUCK9. That is my Cash App. See you in another one. Ciao.